So,
Nice.
good morning, everybody. Welcome to Survivor Rites. I say this every day, another week passed. Our guest today is Dani Marr. So excited to have her. Um, we have a lot to talk about, but I want to start today by two things. Putting a trigger warning out there. We're going to talk about a lot of things today. We're going to talk about religious abuse, spiritual abuse, um, some other horrendous, heinous abuse, but also just things that are hard in relationship. And also, we're going to talk about the ministry today. So I just want to put it out there. If you're not in a place that you're able and willing to process through all that at the moment, you might want to step away and find some support. With that, I also want to say that, as always on Survivor Rights, we are not here to tell anyone what to believe. We are here to just share individual experiences, uh, explore ideas. We're trying to just encourage thoughtful dialogue and conversation. And we hope that you will take what resonates with you today and leave what does not. So I want to welcome everybody here. Especially our guest today. I met Dani through Brad and Kelly Graves, who live in Maine, and we have just had a fabulous connection through what has happened to her. And what I really wanted to talk today about is Brad baptizing her, her quest to find God in Christianity. And so we're going to go through a lot of very, very specific details of this whole journey. You went to meeting for 7 years and never
Three.
professed. Three.
Three.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
I got that
Three.
wrong. I had seven in my notes.
That's
But
okay.
long enough for if Christianity is the way to go and you're seeking God, you certainly should have arrived at that destination in that in the system. So, um, I'm going to start with the last question I was going to ask you, which is, sitting here today, if you could speak directly to the workers who challenged you back then and said, you're not abiding by the rules, all the things, I'm going to let you not put words in your mouth. I'm going to let you answer that. What would you say to them now, looking back?
Hmm, that is such a great question. I would say that I would want to have a conversation, just a conversation, and I would want them to listen, like actually hear what I had to say. And no one has to prove their faith and their own journey to them so that you can be accepted. Um, I would want to worship with them. I would want to like sing praise to Jesus. Like I would want to worship with them because I would want to show them what I've discovered. And I would tell them that I forgive them. I've actually texted many of them and said, I forgive you. And I would just say, like, maybe have a listen. Maybe just have a listen.
I
Simple as
love that.
that. Yeah.
Somehow I knew that was going to be your answer, and we have not discussed that. But I also want to just put out there that what we're going to talk about today is not a witch hunt in any way, shape, or form for anybody out
No.
there. We have so much love in our hearts and desire for people to find their path, whatever that is, outside of a legalistic system that defines and sets down rules that keeps people from finding God or keeps people. It just has, it's more than guardrails. It's a full-on cement block system that they got going on. So we're going to kind of look through that whole thing and maybe give them some suggestions today on how they might do things differently in the future. So, I want to start by where you were when you started going to meetings. So before you ever stepped into a two by two meeting,
Yes.
what did you think you were going into? Were you seeking God, or were you in a relationship that you were just like, well, if I want to be in a relationship with this person, I should probably do this because it seems important to him. Talk to us about what that looked like.
Sure. I was introduced to the two by two group because of where I worked. And I was in the process of a large purchase of a building. my landlord and I made a deal. And the deal was only his contractor could do the remodel. After the remodel, that's when I would purchase it. But the caveat here is really important because my current landlord had actually no interaction except for paying the bill to the remodel. So the design, every aspect, every window, and this is not a house. This is a giant building in a city. And so that is how I was introduced, was through this man. And we had a very interesting connection. We were turbulent. Like he would say, this is what you should do with this wall. And I would say, that is not what I want. So we butted heads, like pretty hardcore. And so it was interesting because he didn't work for me, but he worked for me. So it was just like an interesting conversation. So we would meet with my landlord at the time, myself and him, and just have conversations. And my landlord was like, just basically do everything that Dani wants because she is going to be purchasing the building after the renovations, because there was no way I could get a loan with the current state of the building. Like I would have been denied. So that is how I was introduced to the meetings, was through this man. Now, it's really important to say that, so in this building, I lived and raised my family in the apartment above. And so the apartment above was also part of the project. So like there's 4 rental properties in the building. There's a big giant parking lot. And so when I say that I was with this person every day, it was like from like 7:30 in the morning to sometimes 9 p.m. And during this time, my son would come home and I'd be like, grab your violin. We got to go to violin lessons. Like it was just, you're just a part of the person's life. And so there was definitely like lots of flirting going on. I was for sure attracted to him, super manly. Like I always like would call him like the Marlboro man, like just like the man that I feel like is kind of disappearing, right? So like very masculine. And so definitely flirting going on, like things would happen, like he would come upstairs in my apartment, didn't know I was there, thought I was somewhere else in the building. I would be getting out of the shower. So like things started to just kind of happen. And we started having conversations about jewelry, lipstick. And this is how it started. As you can see, I wear lipstick. And so this was something he would ask me about. Like he would ask me about my lipstick. I just thought it was very cute. I'm Latina, so I'm bold and loud and just say my opinion. I was also like in the height of my career. So I was like slaying in my job. I was like purchasing property, and I was like on this, I don't know, this level of like where you are when a female is like getting
Yes.
getting shit done kind of thing.
Yep.
And so that's where my
It's a
state of
vibe.
mind was. It's a vibe. And so I think at that point I had been divorced for, I'm not even sure, maybe 10 years at this point. I can't remember. But my focus was my career, raising my family, purchasing property, like reestablishing myself after my divorce. So men, that was not on my radar. That was like, get out of my way because I'm going in this direction. We would have conversations about this. It would be 7 or 8 o'clock at night, and I'm like, have you even eaten? Like he's a really, I will say this, he's a very, probably the hardest working man besides my stepdad that I've ever met. So I really was fond of his work ethic. We would talk about that. I also have a very strong work ethic. I've never met anybody that I could talk about that with. So it's an exciting time. He would question me about Christmas. So it was like lipstick, jewelry, tattoos would come up. And he would give me his opinion, and I would be like, oh, that's a really interesting opinion. Why do you feel this way? Christmas came up, and he asked me why I didn't have a Christmas tree. And I said, well, because we're in the middle of renovating my house, which is above the building. And I said, I just don't know how I feel about a Christmas tree. I don't know how I feel about Christmas. I don't know how I feel about like the birth of Jesus. I don't know about it. But I know that it's been a part of my life growing up. Christmas has always been a very big deal to my mom and my family, and I love Christmas, and I love Christmas songs, and they make me feel peaceful. So this is how the conversation began. Lipstick, tattoos, jewelry, his stance on feminism, my stance on masculinity, and believe it or not, they kind of lined up. Like, I would say, although I'm like a boss babe, I'm pretty traditional, but I wasn't seeking that in my life because I was divorced and I was just like, hey, this is what I'm going to do with my life. So I purposely was not dating because my career was what I was focusing on and raising my son. So that's how we met, and the conversation started. And he would say things like, well, I don't go to a church. And I would say, what do you mean? Like, you said you had fellowship. What does fellowship mean? And for those of you who know me who are watching, I ask a lot of questions. And like her or not, I'm a Candace Owens kind of girl. Like, I ask questions. Well, why do you think that way? And what makes you think this way? And do you have any evidence of this? And so I'd question him constantly about, wait, you said you had to leave on Wednesday. Where did you go? You have to pick up people at the airport, but you don't know who they are. How do you know who they are? He'd say they just have a look. So all these things just kind of like I started just like planting seeds in my mind. And so things progressed with us, and he was there till 11 o'clock at night. And so it was like from 7 in the morning till 11 o'clock at night, and my work day is done. I would go downstairs, put my son to bed. I'd make him dinner. We'd have a bottle of wine, and things progressed. When they progressed, I was like, I need to know who this man is, because I don't just date guys. Like, I need to know who he is. And I felt like he was hiding something from me. And I said, what are you hiding? Like, are you married? Like, I would put his name into Google. I would just be like, there's something I could feel that he's not telling me. But I'm having the best time of my life. Like, how? But there's something off inside of me. And so one day, I was like, he goes to a church, he said, but it doesn't have a name. So I was like, okay. So I make notes. Like, I'll make notes of this conversation about my day, and just like, not journaling, but just like little notes. And so one time he said I do go to like a fellowship, but it doesn't have a name. So I wrote no name. And then he'd be like, okay, well, we meet Wednesday night at someone's house. So I wrote Wednesday night, someone's house in my notebook. And then I would also write like, oh, this happened with us. Oh, we kissed over here. Like, just like little cute little things in my notebook. And one night I just put it in Google. All of these things. Boom, 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 boom. So it came up with 2x2 religion. And then it had a bunch of books that were recommended. And so one of them was Preserving the Truth, and one of them was by Elizabeth Coleman. Oh, he's Australian, by the way. And so that was fascinating to me. And so, like, why he was here and how he met this woman, his ex-wife. And I was like, oh, that just is really interesting. Like, wow, who did you know when you came to Utah? Like, did you just come here? And he's like, oh yeah, I just came here with some friends. And the word friends was like, he would always refer to it as friends. And I thought, well, that's a really odd way to speak. So I put that in the Google search as well. So it came up 2x2 religion. And so I ordered the Preserving the Truth and Elizabeth Coleman's book. And I loved the Elizabeth Coleman book, and I love to read. So one day, and this is how it all comes together, I was like, okay, so I was like, William Irvine, wrote all these notes down. I was like, well, the next time I see him, I could just ask him, like, why would he not tell me? And so on Instagram, I would sometimes post my books that I was reading with my friends. They're reading a book. And so I took a picture of the front of Elizabeth Coleman's book, and it was a tent. And I posted that on Instagram, and someone that I knew calls me or messages me and is like, is the person who's doing your construction work? Because I was like, I met this guy. I was like telling my friends, I was like excited about it. He's masculine. Like he kind of was checking the boxes, but there's just something that's off and I cannot put my fingers on it. So basically, either she calls me or we have coffee. I can't remember because it was so long ago. And she says, is it this? And she says the name. Is it Simon? And I said, yes. And she said, we need to meet immediately. I was a part of this group, and he has been with a woman for 22 years. Like, I'm like, what? So we met, this whole thing came out, but we're not like official. Like, we're not like super serious. I mean, we're late 40s, early 50s. Like, I was just, okay, so that is how I found out about the group, was just my own investigative work and buying the book and looking things like he would say something and then I would look it up in Preserving the Truth because I wanted to know who this man was that I was spending time with.
Okay. Well, that's a lot of information and very relevant to where we're going with this conversation.
Yes.
So, all of that happens.
Yes.
At what point did you say, I want a relationship to move forward, or I want to find God? How did those things tie together as you moved forward from where you were?
So I got this information from a girlfriend of mine and I asked him about it. I'm like, are you with the woman? What's going on? Like, this is really weird. We're still really casual, but we see each other every day from like 7 in the morning to 11 o'clock at night. So like, how are you with, like, logically, time wise? So I was just kind of like, basically just asking him questions, and he was very open about it. And he was like, you know what, Dani, told me this very sad story about this woman, and her husband left her to go search for gold or hidden treasures. And I was like, wow, this is a movie. And he said, I felt so bad for her that I helped her with her children. And I've helped to raise these children. And I was like, in my mind, googly eyes, like heart eyes, I was like, what a man. What, like, that is so noble. So that's how I'm viewing it, is that this is a noble act. And so he said, and I just felt so bad for her. And so this is at this time I'm believing him, and we would have very deep conversations. Like, he's divorced, I'm divorced. I told him things I've never told anyone and how I feel. And he would ask me about like where I get my strength or how I power on and like all of these things. Like, I started with nothing when I moved back to the United States after getting divorced. And I told him a story, and I hope I don't cry, but I was raised sort of Mormon, like kind of Mormon a little bit. And so that's kind of all I knew. So when I moved to Utah after I lived in Guatemala, they have these giant temples everywhere, and they're really, really lit up at night. And so I live in Utah still, and I would just be like, wow, that is like the ultimate place. So I told him, like, when I would struggle, I would drive to these temples and I would just sit in the parking lot and cry and be like, well, this is where God is. So this is where I should be. And I would just cry. I'm like raising my son by myself. I'm building this business. I'm taking care of my family. And I told him this, and he was like, Dani, you don't have to go to these temples. And I'm like, I don't? Where do I go? What do I do? And he was kind and would hold me, and just like, this is how this got started. So I had a lot of trust for him. And he would be like, Dani, you just have to read the Bible. That's it. And I was like, okay, well, I've never read the Bible before. I might have like an old Bible, like a Mormon Bible, but I don't have a Bible. So he bought me a Bible. And he challenged me to read it. And I like a good challenge. Give me a good challenge. And he left to go back home to visit his family. And we would FaceTime and text 25 text messages a day. And I said, I'm going to read it, but I have to read it on my own time. And we would just continue to have these extremely deep conversations about who Jesus is, what really is Christmas. And he told me something about the rainbow. And I was like, I had never met a Christian person, or at least a Christian person that spoke to me. He was the only one that ever talked to me about Jesus. And he told me about the real reason. We had a conversation about pride. He's definitely like has issues with certain types of people, and I would defend them, and we would get into like gnarly disagreements about pride and about different things like that. And so he changed my perspective about the rainbow, because I couldn't believe that it had this in the Bible. Like, I was just so fascinated. And so I'm starting to fall in love with him. We're starting to fall in love. We're having these beautiful conversations. He's teaching me things, and he buys me this Bible. And some mistrust came up on, like, my friend would be like, hey, I think he went to Idaho to this winery. And I was like, were you at this winery? Like, you told me you were doing this. And he would switch it around, and then I would believe him. And so I was like, okay, because he FaceTimed me. So like, why would I not believe him? Well, he was still in that other relationship with that other lady. And so he leaves again. He would go back and forth to Australia, back here, and he finished up my building, and he's on working somewhere else, and my success is all happening, everything I ever dreamed of. I purchased the building, like all my dreams are coming true. I'm working really hard, and he leaves, and he's in Australia. So I was like, I'm going to read the book. Well, I started to read the book, and COVID happened, and it was the week of March 17th. Go figure. And obviously it was COVID. My business shut down. My dog died. And my doctor called me and said, Dani, you're very ill and you have no kidney function. He's gone. I have this Bible. They said you have 5% kidney function, and you need to come into the hospital like immediately. Like, your life is like, you're going to die if you do not get some help. And so I just said, I'm going to read this book on my porch. I started homeschooling my son, who has a lot of problems. And I sat on my back deck and I read the New Testament. I would text him. I'd be like, where do I start? And he's like, start in the New Testament. So I started in the New Testament, and I would read from early morning to late at night. And then I would text him and ask him all these questions. And he's like, wow, Dani, you got so far. These are great questions. And so he's encouraging me. I read more. So I finished the New Testament. My doctors are like, you are going to die, lady. Like, you need to get a transplant immediately. So I read the New Testament in 30 days. During this time, I'm on my back deck alone. My business is closed. Like, I am at the bottom of the barrel. Like, everything I worked for I'm losing it. I have my health. I'm dizzy. I'm sick. I'm confused all the time because I have no kidney function. My son is suicidal. And I found something. In the Bible, and I couldn't figure it out. I was angry. I was really angry because I was like, I'm all alone, but yet I feel this peace. I was like, well, why did this happen? Why did this happen? I would just shout out, why? But like, yet I have peace. It was a very tumultuous time for myself alone on this back deck. And so we would just text and FaceTime and text. He's building a house over there. And so he was my lifeline. And that is, he returned. At this point, I'm completely not allowed to see any people because I could die. So I saw him, I saw my son, and I saw my mom. And that was for about 2 years, about that. A miracle happened, and a woman on Instagram gave me her kidney. A strange woman gave me a kidney. So I'm like, would say to him, like, I really believe that God has is like giving me this kidney, and this is a miracle. Like I believed in good things, but I never believed in miracles. And I'm like, it's because I have this connection with God and I like know who Jesus is. And I'm not the same person anymore. And something's happened to me. I don't know what is happening to me, but something is happening to me. And so he was my one and only resource. One and only resource was this man. And I follow a pastor online called Paul Washer. So that is how I would reference things. I got my transplant, and I believe it was 9 weeks later, I said, I need to go to a church. Like, why are you not taking me to your church? I can now see people. I have a new kidney. I don't have to be alone anymore, but like I was completely alone. And so because of illness, I couldn't see people. Because of COVID, I could die. And so at one point I technically died in the hospital. I was in and out of the hospital, in and out of the hospital. And I had this experience that I shared with him, and he was like, Dani, you should never tell anyone. You sound crazy. And I was like, no, this happened. Like, I saw the light. I saw the light. Like, I saw Jesus. Like, he was this big. And I would just be so excited. And I'm like, this happened, and something is happening to me. Full stop. And I need to go to church. Why are you not taking me to church? What is happening? And he goes, I've been waiting for you to ask me. Because it has to be on your own accord. But I know a little bit because I had read the books, and I knew they wore hair in buns. I knew they wouldn't wear bright clothes. I knew they wouldn't wear lipstick. And so I had met a couple because we went on this donkey ride to ride these donkeys or mules and go camping after my transplant. And I was so happy to be outside. I was so happy to see people. And I thought they were just a really cute couple. They still are a really cute couple. And they're part of the church. And I was like, oh, they seem pretty cool. His friend seems pretty cool. Like, you know, we drank wine. It was fine. Like, things are cool. Like, it was a cool time. I decided to go with him, and I kind of knew what to expect. So I wore my hair in a bun. I dressed like them on purpose. And I said to him, I'm very worried because, and I don't know how else to say it, but like urinating after a kidney transplant is like an issue. And so I was very afraid of that. And he would say, okay, Dani, we're going to sit by the bathroom because you can just go right to the bathroom. I'll make sure, I'll take care of you. And so I was like, okay. So we go. And it was in a faraway place in a barn. It was very, very hot. They didn't use air conditioning. I was very confused by that. And we walked in and everybody stared at me. And it was like, you could tell that no one besides themselves goes. Like you could tell, that was a weird feeling. They spoke, and it was nothing. They spoke about basically like preaching the gospel to people in prison. And I was like, okay, whatever. I didn't feel anything special. I was just like, yeah, whatever. It was an old guy and a young guy. And afterwards, people just started coming up to me. Now, mind you, I have my hair up. I have no makeup on. I look like I belong. My tattoos are covered. And this woman comes up to me and she says, what is your last name? And I said, well, I have two because I'm Latin. Which one do you want? And she said, well, who are your parents? Who are your grandparents? And I said, well, my mom's name is Candace and my dad's name is Rick. And she was like, she's like, Rogers. And I was like, she's like, well, where were you raised? And I was like, this is such a weird question. At this time, I'm not realizing that she's trying to find out where I'm from, like who my parents are. And I said, well, I grew up in Maine. And I just thought, wow, that is so weird. Someone else, who are your parents? Who are your parents? So I think it was a total of like 4 to 5 older people wanted to know who my parents were, because I guess it would be really strange for like new people to show up. And we went home, we went to his house afterwards, we had lunch, and I was like, that was so weird. why was there no air conditioning? And why are we sitting there sweating? And why is everybody asking me about my last name? And instead of telling me the truth, it was just like, oh, Dani, these people love you. I go, well, they love me. They don't even know me. So this is where Dani's being, like on the defense. I'm like, no, I just want to know what's going on. But instead of telling me the truth, be like, hey, only new people do not hardly show up. And you're a spectacle because you're with me. And this would not normally happen. Like a regular church, people new come all the time and you just are like, hi, welcome. And just, it's a different experience. But I don't have any real church experience besides the Mormon church. I don't really have any, I don't know any Christian people at this time in my life. And I mean, I'm like, what, 9 at that time, 50. And it was just like, that's so strange that I don't know any Christian people. But people are saying that these are like Christian, they're not saying they're Christian people. They just say that they have this fellowship. And so this is when I'm introduced to the workers. And this is when it gets really interesting.
So I just want to also make the point, it's very obvious, but 2x2 women who are born and raised definitely do not come at this with the confidence, the life experience, the level of success. That's very, very rare inside the church. And so back to the vibe thing that we talked about earlier, not only did you walk in with him and all of that, add your vibe to what's happening
Yes.
here. I just want to throw that out there for people who are following this along. Okay.
Yes.
You meet the workers.
Yep. And I think these guys who spoke are nice. I mean, I don't, I don't know them. They don't know me. And so they wanted to, I think he invited them over for dinner. I think that was kind of the next step. And so they came over for dinner to his house and I'm at his house. Now you have to think, okay, so I knew him a total of 7 years. So that's where you got the 7 years from. So 3 years prior, I don't know anything about his church life except for what I was told and what I put into Google. Now I'm in the church group. So it was like before church group, after church group. So there's a very distinct line in there with our relationship. So we have what would be considered like a total worldly, normal relationship. I meet this guy, like, I don't know any different. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I only know what I know. And so
We call
as
that
I'm,
duplicity.
yeah. And so there's
That's
a very distinct line after going to. And so that line also lines up with my kidney transplant and reading the Bible. So that's the 3-year marker. I transplanted during our relationship at the 3-year marker. He's like, Dani, I'm gonna take care of you. Like I like full on I need to tell this before we continue. After I transplanted, I had to have somebody with me in the day and somebody with me at night for 30 days. Like you sign a document like saying you're going to take care of this person. And so my mom was going to do days and he was going to do nights at my house. And so my friends would be like, well, why wouldn't he take you to his house? And I was like, I don't know. Like, I didn't even think about that because of my son. And my son has a lot of issues. Like, I'm just going to say a lot of issues, like mild schizophrenia, like a lot of issues, multiple personality, autistic, all the things. And so he said to me, Dani, your son has a demon. I cannot stay with you at night after your transplant. He has a demon. And I was like, he has a demon? Okay, what do we do if he has a demon? Like, I'm like surviving after a major surgery the first day I'm home. And he says, I cannot stay the night and take care of you because you have a demon in your house. And I'm like, how do I get rid of the demon? Like, I'm like, I am so overwhelmed. And I just received this kidney transplant that day. I was just home. He says my son has a demon. I'm so overwhelmed at this point that I'm online in my bed, like figuring out, how do I get this demon out of my house? Like, and you could feel, and I do need to say this, you could feel something in my house. And I could feel it, but it was my son, so I didn't know how to navigate that. And so I just want to put that on the shelf because that's a really important part of the story. And I would bring up little things with the workers, be like, these are people, preaching the gospel, and I'm in the Bible, and I would just be like, hey, what do the whole story of like casting out the demons and them going into the pigs. And I was very interested in the story because he had told me that there's a demon in my house. So I'm petrified as well. And I would ask the workers, well, what does being a worker mean? What does that even mean? Like, if you tell me if you're the CEO of a company, I want to know what your job description is. And they didn't say I don't know, but they just said, we find people who want to hear the gospel. And I said, okay, well, what is the gospel? It was almost as though they never knew, like they couldn't answer very direct questions. And so I would be like, well, why can't you answer these questions? I don't understand why you can't answer these questions. So I said, I have done some research, and my research shows that you potentially believe that you are exactly like Paul. And again, this is the first year of me reading the Bible. I only know what I read. That's it. And so I would be like, well, do you believe that you're the same? And they would say, yes, but we cannot perform miracles. That's the only thing that they can't do. So pretty consistent, they would all tell me the same thing. And then we would have dinner at his house, and they would bring up different things. And I said, hey, let's study the Bible together. I'm down. Like, let's do it. I'm avid. Like, I'm hungry. I'm thirsty. I'm craving Jesus. Like, let's bring it on. So we would. And we would read it, and they would read it, and then they would say how they felt about it. And I would say, well, there's a difference between saying how you feel about it and then the actual truth of the gospel. So if you're a person who dedicated your life to the gospel, and I'm not trying to be a jerk here, like I'm not trying to be confrontational. I just want to know, if you're going to tell me about my soul, I need to know who you are. I also need to know why you live in houses with children. So my spidey senses are flying. And they would say, Dani, this is love. And I would say, it is? And then we'd have dinner with him, and we would talk, and they would say, Dani, like, you've never experienced love in a family before. And I was like, I haven't? And so this is where they started to skew my head. And the man that I was dating, gave him my full trust. Like, I've never done that with any other person besides my ex-husband. I gave him my full trust, so I believed him. And he would say, Dani, this is purity. You've never experienced purity and love. In a community, we love each other. And I would, go to the meetings and the Sunday, and the Wednesday was at his house like every other Wednesday. And I loved the other every Wednesday. It was like a lot of young people, and they would say things that would make sense to me, but I never felt like I would cry a lot during the music. But I never, and I was very nervous because I didn't know. I was like, well, can I say something? Like, nobody could answer any question. Nobody knew anything. That is basically what I can tell you, is that, what is the gospel of Jesus Christ? I would say to a worker. I would say to this worker, what is the gospel? And how are you a representative of God? Like, I just want to know, this is not any way being confrontational. I just want to know. And so every single time, I'm an A personality. I have multiple businesses, and I'm a go-getter, right? So sometimes they would find these questions offensive. And later I would be reprimanded by him, the guy that I was dating, be like, Daddy, that was so rude. And I was like, how is it rude? I just want to know. And he was like, you just need to be calm. That's what they would always tell me, that it was the reason I wasn't getting these answers that I wanted was because I wasn't calm. And I was thinking to myself, I'm so calm. I'm just chilling. And I asked one of the workers, I said, I'm just very confused about the 2x2 because I read the Bible, I referenced the Bible, and it was a temporary mission according to what I was reading. And so why do you make this a mission of your whole life? Why are you celibate, supposedly? Why are you all of these things? And why do you live in this man's house that I'm dating? Why? And if I become a member, do you want to live in my house? Because you will never live in my house because I have a child. And so little things it was almost as though I was chasing something I could never catch. And so the more I would go, the harder I would dig, and I wanted the answers. But during this time, and this is what is so beautiful, God is doing a work in my life. God is showing me things that I've never seen before. God is in me. God is with me. And inside of me, like I could feel Jesus. I would pretend that I was at the bottom of the cross, or that he would walk by me and I would touch him. Like, I don't have any point of reference besides the Bible at this point in YouTube. Like, I would follow this guy, Paul Washer, and then the guy that I was dating. And I had a miracle happen. A woman gave me a kidney from Instagram. How does that happen? I said, why did you give me this kidney? And she said, I came home from Pilates or yoga, and I was talking to my husband in the kitchen, and I saw an Instagram post that you needed a kidney. And I said, well, then what? And she said, something came over me. And it told me I'm the one. And I know that was God. So all of these things are happening while I'm in attendance and getting reprimanded for asking questions. And one would say, well, we don't know, but let me ask this one. And I said, well, I'm not really looking for an opinion. I don't want an opinion. I want to know about how I can be baptized because I have given my life to God. I know Jesus. Need to do this. Like, it was like this craving that I had to be baptized. And I said, I have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of text messages with the workers. And I would say, how can I be baptized? I'm ready. I'm so excited. I'm ready to be baptized. Like, I am here. I'm ready to be baptized. And maybe this is why I'm coming here. I said, how do I be baptized? And they said, we don't know. I said, what do you mean you don't know? They said, we don't know how to help you, Dani.
So
We don't know.
be, we everyone listening that is an X2x2 knows the answer to that. I want to very quickly address, because we only have 15 minutes left. There's
I'm so
still a
sorry.
lot to get to. No, 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 no. It's relevant to how it all unfolded, because we're going to wrap it up and it's going to be solid in how this went down.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, talk to us about how the you didn't profess.
Yes.
Uh,
Well, all I knew about the professing,
Professing should come before baptism, according to them. So tell
yeah.
us the story of them testing the meeting. You didn't stand up.
Right.
However,
And
that
again, I don't even know what testing the meeting is. So, like, I'm totally foreign except for what I read in these books and online. And so I kind of knew that Well, I didn't know. I just would look things up, you know? And so I'd be like, oh, well, they did this. Well, what does this mean? Or I would ask somebody and they would say, oh, we don't know. Nobody would tell me the truth. Not one person would tell me the truth. And so um, when
But you're
on
reading the
Sunday,
Bible with me very clearly. Yes.
I started speaking in Sunday meeting. And one time I brought a poem and I read a poem. I went camping the night before. I went by myself and I was so excited because I had this massive spiritual experience and I wrote a poem in the woods and I wrote it down. And I was also told not to bring notes. So I was like, okay, well, I'm going to bring notes because I bring notes. So I'm going to do that. So I said this poem. After the meeting, I was told, never do that again. I was like, but this was a poem and this like spoke to me and I wanted to share. This was on my heart. Don't do that. So I was like, okay. So that was the one thing I was told not to do. And I would go to a gospel meeting and I would say to the guy, I would say, oh, like, no one knew is coming. Like, it's just so strange. I just don't understand. And he said, Dani, these people are having these meetings for you. And I was like, for me? Why would they have these meetings for me? And so they would, now I know in retrospect, they would say, hey, does anybody want to like stand up? And I don't know the words they use, but what it meant to me was join the church. I don't know how they said it, but in my view, sitting there, it was like, hey, do you want to join our church? That's what it said to me. And I'm like, I don't want to join your church because I just want to follow Jesus. And so that happened probably like 2 or 3 times. And then I went to convention and I walked out because of what was being said at the pulpit. And so I never was a part of that, just because the way they would talk about women. Um, and so I never professed. Um, I just would say I'm a follower of Jesus. And so I would just say, hey, to the workers, I'm a follower of Jesus. What does that mean to you? That's kind of how it was. And so I was very, very upset that they wouldn't help me to become baptized. And nobody would give me information. So I asked Simon, will you baptize me? I need to be baptized. I overcame this illness. I need to be baptized. And he was like, I don't know how to help you, Dani. So I had asked him, I'm like, do we do it in the bathtub? Let's go to a lake. I want to do this. Like, I needed to do this. And so at this point, I had made a message on, I forget what the name of it is, the online group, the CCF or the Mighty, or I'm not sure what it's called. And this man messaged me about baptism. And it was so beautiful. And he said, I said, oh, I'm from Maine and I'm headed to Maine. And he put me in touch with Brad and Kelly. And I had made an Airbnb reservation, happened to be in their town, which who knew? And this is where God is like, I'm in charge of you, not anybody else. So I'm in touch with these people. They're in Union, Maine. My Airbnb is like, I think in Union, Maine, but maybe a town over. And some other people from the meeting that I had made friends with, younger folks, were going to be there, and we were going to go on a little cruise to this island. I was so excited, and his sister was going to be there, so I was so excited. And I remember this whole trip I was just praying, like, if you want me to be baptized, you're going to have to do it. Like, this is how I would just talk to God, like driving down the road, like, I don't know what else to do. Like, I've tried my hardest. I don't know what to do, but I want to. So if I don't get the opportunity, like, this is my heart, right? And so I meet Brad and Kelly and we have a conversation. I'm from Maine. I'm in this beautiful state. I meet them. I love them immediately. I feel so cared for immediately. They had just come out of meetings and like giving up their meeting, which is all new to me. This is
30
all new to
plus
me.
years.
And so we just have this incredible, beautiful conversation on their back deck. And I said, I just want to be baptized, but I don't know how, right? And so Kelly, I remember she said, well, it's a shame because if the pool was open, we could just do it right here. And I remember her saying that, but I don't think anything of it. And then Brad and Kelly asked me in my Airbnb is right around the corner, they asked me for coffee the next morning. And I said, oh, I would love to have coffee because I'm just yearning for attention and I'm yearning for fellowship. I'm yearning for something. And I found it in them. I was like, I would be with these people all of the time because I feel like they love me and they just met me. And we're at coffee and I can't remember, and Brad is probably much better at remembering exactly what happened, but like the spirit entered that coffee shop, and I remember him just his eyes welling up with tears, and he said to me, and on the way I was in my rental car, I was like, okay, God, I was just talking this like, if you want me to be baptized, okay, whatever, right? Like, and I remember saying, like, my life is yours. My life is yours. And I park and I go in and we're talking. We had this amazing coffee and sandwich, and his eyes well up with tears. And he asked me, Dani, would you like to be baptized? And I said, yes, I want to be baptized. And he said, what if we do it today? And I said, I'm staying on a pond. I'm staying on a pond at my Airbnb. We can just do it there. My friends come in. his my friends, this couple comes in, Jordan and Star, and then his sister Miranda and her family and her husband, so they were there. They meet Brad and Kelly and me, and we're all in this place in Maine at Round Pond. And that is where it happened. And Brad took me in. I was actually like, I was very peaceful, but I was really kind of scared. But I was just trusting the whole process. And we did it, and he asked me, is there a song that you want to sing? And I said, well, what about Amazing Grace? I've always loved that song. So we went back, and this beautiful girl that I had just met, who had been going to meetings her whole life, played Amazing Grace on the piano. We all sang Amazing Grace. We said a prayer. One of them said a prayer, an opening prayer and a closing prayer. And, it was like almost as though, how could all of these people from all over the country end up in Maine, of all places, and to for God to organize all of this out of something that was so ugly and so difficult for so many people, to have me baptized. Like, that is the true miracle of all of this, is how big God is. He's not teeny tiny. He's not only lives in this one little place, at this one little meeting place, at this one little, God is. And it was like almost as though God led me to Brad and Kelly, because I look towards them for a lot of things. Like, I'll call them, I'll text them. They offer me love. They offer me support. I am in fellowship with them in a small community. But I'm still making sense of things. I'm still, my trust is, I'm still muddling through my 3 years, tiny, only 3 years. So I can't imagine my whole lifetime. I can't even imagine being suppressed as a woman in that group. And I told the workers one time, I'm not going to shame myself to make other people feel better. Like, I can't get up and talk about how of a horrible person I am in a meeting, because that's the culture. I can't do that. I can only do what God puts on my heart. And so I was a constant threat in the meetings. They didn't want me there. Maybe some of the younger girls liked it. Like, they would kind of egg me on a little bit, but they just didn't want me there. They didn't want me there. They wanted me gone, and I'm gone now, and that is what it is. But the beautiful story is that I am in Christ, and I get to share my testimony. I pray with people. I pray over people now. What came out of this is so much more beautiful than kind of that ugly time in my life, which was very confusing.
So at the end of the day, it really is a story of redemption. It really is a story of love. It
Yes.
really is a story of God's power and miracle of the way
Yes.
that He works in our lives. And that is why, when you and I first talked, I wanted to have this conversation with you, because I will say that Brad is probably sitting in his chair crying right now, because it was so deeply meaningful to him, and to both of them. They felt so spiritually moved to do this. I
Yes.
do want everyone to know that when you got back from that, the workers were very specific that your baptism was not recognized. It was
Yes.
not uh,
Yes, I
going to
talked to
work.
the head worker or the head worker. Is that what it's called? The lead. Yes. And I said I was baptized because I was excited to report the news. And
Right.
they were like, "Do you think that you're saved?" And I said, "I know that I'm saved." And they said, "How?" And I said, "Because I put all of my faith in Jesus. It is not what I do. It has nothing to do with what I do. It is what Jesus has done for me. It is what Jesus has done for me." And so I said to the head worker, is that what it's called? The overseer. That's what it's called. I said, "Does this not count?" Because I was still thinking maybe they would accept me. Like in the back of my mind, I thought maybe I could just do enough so that they would think I was okay. And he said, he gave me some advice in a text, and I have the text. And I said, "Well, what would I need to do? Just tell me what I would need to do." And he gave me the name of a girl who was in my meetings. Her name is Scarlett. And I'm sorry, Scarlett, but I just have to say, this is what he told me to do. He said, act like Scarlett, dress like Scarlett, be submissive like Scarlett, and then maybe we'll see. And that's the last conversation I ever had with anybody. I was done.
Right.
I was done.
So that is the reason that I believe that this conversation occurs here on Survivor Rights. Sunday morning, we kind of go to church together. Not that I'm recommending that to anybody. I don't. Everyone is free to believe what they want to believe, but the fellowship that we do have here on Sunday mornings is about moving forward. It is about letting go of the chains that have kept so many suppressed and bound. And I just feel like your story is so empowering and so inspiring. And I also want to magnify the fact that coming at this church from the outside, and I want to just say this in general, whether the person is super successful like you or super educated, all of those things that you are, a normal person, any normal person coming into the church and seeing the way that they do things, it feels abusive, it feels wrong, it feels off. um
Yes.
and the reason that so again, I want to say, I say this all the time, tradition isn't truth. It's programming, programming, programming. It's
Yes.
not biblical. It is not doctrine. I have read the Bible about who has the authority to baptism. Do you need to stand up in a meeting to profess? No, you do not need to do. Anybody can baptize when your heart is submissive. And a heart being submissive does not mean that you need to have a purity culture. That is not how the Bible clarifies that. So I just want to be super clear to people who are struggling still on that line of how do I navigate all of this? And as a woman specifically, how can I look in the mirror and feel beautiful and feel
Mm,
seen, feel
mm,
loved and feel worthy? How do I find God? All of those things. I do feel like this is a story of redemption. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for the love that you share with everyone, the forgiveness that you have back, even to everyone in the situation now, the way that you started this out this morning. I didn't know what your answer was going to be, but I had a pretty good idea that it was going to be love and forgiveness. And that is because God is living in your heart. And it's so obvious to me as I've gotten to know you that, and Brad and Kelly, I know will attest to the same thing. You shine with God's love. You have
mm, thank you.
completely you are completely submissive to him, and the power and the vibe that you have is just deeper and better and stronger, and I love it. Love,
Mm,
love, love it. So I'm gonna
thank
very
you.
quickly, I want to thank Brad and Kelly.
Mm,
I want to thank so many people. Today is really about acknowledgement of a system that is broken and a system that requires things that are not biblical. God is not asking those things of any of us. What he's asking us to do is to love. And that is the message of this morning, and to
Yes.
find him and to seek him, which is what you did and what you have done. So I'm going to open
I
it up
believe
very.
that I was led. I believe that I was led to Brad and Kelly for a lot of reasons. I think it was more not just about my desire and my need to ask God to help me be baptized. I was sent to Maine for something so
Yes,
much bigger than myself, and
right,
how big God is and
right.
the work that He will do in your life. And you don't have to be sitting in a house to receive this message from Jesus. My heart was changed in my bathtub of my apartment, on the porch of my house. That this chair right here, this is it doesn't have to be there. You don't have to be told by this man in the pulpit. God can speak. It's right here. It's right in us. We have access all the time. All the time.
I want to thank you. I'm going to give you last word. I want to know if anyone out there has any questions for her. We will be monitoring comments as this goes on as well. And it will be posted to YouTube later today. But I am again amazed at the profound depth of love. There's just no other way to say that. I feel the same about Brad and Kelly. And yes, so Sarah's saying, love seeing how you are on fire for Jesus. And you are. It just comes, I mean, when I first met you, we've never even met, but I feel like I know you. Um, Also through Brad and Kelly, just the spirit that you interact with and communicate with, and the love that you lead with is, the love that you have for all your animals, all of it. It's all unconditional love. It
And
is.
I just want to say one thing. I want to say, like, all of this, I have no angst towards anyone. I sat with other human beings in a house, and they said whatever it is that they said, whatever that meant to them. If the workers did not tell me about Jesus and the gospel, I feel sorry for them, because I know. And you don't have to have 20 years of going to meetings to know Jesus. You don't have to wait 2 years after you profess. None of that exists.
Right.
If a woman like me, who has sinned like me, who continues to sin, who has the ability to go to the cross every single day and and do that every single day, it's like, that is what we need to talk about. And I'm not bitter. I'm not angry. Yeah. Am I going to question you? I am. And if that is offensive to you, then that's something you need to work on. But, it's not, as a woman, I think it's good to stand up for yourself. Being submissive to the Lord doesn't mean being quiet. It doesn't mean shutting your mouth and being a doormat. That's not what it means. Do you know how much Jesus loves women? Look at what he did back in the day. It was like we were property. Jesus loves women.
And he gave us very special gifts.
He did.
He did. Um, Somebody's asking, did she break off her relationship and how did she navigate that?
Yes, that would probably be a 5 hour podcast. But I did break off the relationship. And, I still pray for this man. He needs a lot of prayers, and as do I. It's taken me a few years to navigate all of the,
Duplicity,
yeah,
betrayal,
yes, yes,
duplicity and betrayal.
secrets, yes. But yes, that has been over since about 2023, right before the baptism. Yeah.
Any other questions? Otherwise, I'm going to give you last word and we're going to wrap this up today. I want to thank you so much for showing us your heart and for being the incredible person and woman that you are. So, last word goes to you.
Before I met Jesus, I was sad. I was depressed. I was lost. I was a single parent. I would sit on my back porch. This is before I read the Bible. Then I had these lights. And I would count the lights. And I would talk to God and I know it sounds crazy, but I would be like, okay, God, you gave me this family. Okay, God, you gave me this. Like, what do I do next? And I would follow these lights, just like in this strange thing that I would do. And I would just be like, what's next? What's next? What's next? Tell me what to do. Tell me what to do. Do I go to this temple of this parking lot and like, how do I find you? And what I want to say is that God was with me this whole entire time. I just didn't know it. He has been with me since I was a little girl. I just didn't recognize him. And so it's not about what you do. It's not about my performance. It's not about my attendance. It's not about the way that I look. It's not about the lipstick that I choose to wear or to not wear. This story is about a woman who saw God for the first time, but he's always been with me. And so this is a journey. This story is about my journey to the cross. This is a story about my vision coming into my blindness coming into sight and knowing Jesus. And I would tell you, if you were to talk to all my friends before, my friends would say if I was going to go into a church, it would burn down. That was a joke. And now I I'm not the same. I'm not the same. I have a love inside of me that didn't exist before. And it's not Dani's love. That's the thing. It's not my love. It's because Jesus is literally inside of my skin. He lives inside of my soul. And that is the only reason I can forgive. Because I don't want to forgive. I want to fight you. I mean, I want to go to the court of law and be like, no, you wronged me. But because Jesus is inside of me, he says, hold up, babe. Hold on. You're my daughter. You will represent me. God is available to us at any time, no matter what we're doing. We just need to get on our knees and we need to ask him to come into our lives. And just think of it as a door. I just think of my life as like I opened the door. That's all I did. And he did the rest. He did the rest by even giving me a kidney. He did the rest by sending me to Maine. He did all the things. And he continues to do these things.
Brad said you went into a 2x2 meeting and it almost burned down.
Oh, Brad. I love you guys.
All right, my dear. That's it
Thank
for
you, guys.
today. I cannot thank you enough. And we will definitely be in touch.